with my great tributes to Lord Buddha, all the great and monks, laymen, all Mahaspakas, and gentlemen. Today the topic regarding the peace and harmony and Buddhism. This is really very relevant topic throughout the world. Whenever we discuss about the culture of peace and harmony, we start with the discussion of entire culture. When we begin to study the culture, the great anthropologist A.B. Tyler and T.H. Morgan, they have devised it in 3 phases. First phase belongs to savage stage. Savage stage incorporated human movement and their arts that was limited up to pottery. They roamed naked. When they entered second stage, this was the stage of barbarism. Humans interacted with their indications, with their gestures, physical gestures. They cried, they felt pleasant pains during this human evolution. They understood each other. They changed their geographical locations according to the calamities and the limitations during their fights. And when they entered the third stage, civilization stage, they started writing. At present, we are in the stage of civilization. 35,000 years back, we became Homo sapiens sapiens, and we began to think properly. Man is really very powerful. Man is able to make civilizations. Man is able to destroy civilizations. Man is very powerful. And to control human beings, the culture started a few institutions. The first institution was society. Society through the evolution of family, through the pressure of family. Elders controlled the behavior and conduct of the juniors and all the members of their family. But society could not control completely the power of humans. The second institution evolved, that was a state. Due to physical power, due to their gathering, some people started evolving a state through local mafias, through local muscle power. And it rose up to the evolution of a state. Nation states also developed. Thereafter, imperialism started. So this second institution, the state became very powerful. It made laws according to laws and rules and regulations. The state tried to control humans. The state started its own police, own military, magistrates, executive magistrates, judiciary, and so many things developed. Both these institutions were limited up to controlling humans from external side, from outside. In this duration, what happened? People began to think how to control humans when they are alone, when nobody is watching them. Who must watch? A powerful human being. So they discovered that was morality. If no one is watching him and he is himself watching, morality controls him. during darkness and during loneliness, or when he or she is in any remote area. So it was very successful institution. That was morality, and the religion was its conveyance. But all these three institutions were manipulated by the members. In society, some persons became mafias, land mafias, forest mafias, smugglers. They became outlaw. They started crime. In state, some people became autocrat, some people became benevolent despots like Emperor Ashok, Akbar, Harshvardhan. So many viceroys were there who can be incorporated in the list of good kings or good administrators. In the same manner, religion also developed priestdom. And priestdom in most of the religions became arbitrary. At the age of Lord Buddha, in 6th century BC, so many organizations, so many sects developed, almost 62 sects developed in India. This was the century of awakening and upheaval. Throughout the world, so many sects evolved to control humans from inside. In India, Buddhism and Jainism both became very successful. And their impact, especially the impact of Buddhism, is seen in all revolutionary and reformation works. Whether we see the Magna Carta of 1215, when we see the flower revolution of 1689, French Revolution 1789, in the rights of citizen and man, we see that humans were given some power, which power was given by Lord Buddha, that you are the master of your own self. The same power took the form of revolutions. A reformation spirit developed in humans. In India also, the inspiration reached, and during freedom struggle, we found so many historical inspirations. When Alexander Cunningham saw the places like Sarnath, Nalanda, he employed James Prinsep, and James Prinsep deciphered the script of Brahmi and Kharoshti. We did not know, any page of history did not know about the legacy of Emperor Ashoka. He found that the greatest administrator of the world, greatest king of the world, greatest emperor of the world was Emperor Ashoka, who exhorted according to the principles of Lord Buddha and gave it a practical shape. It was a lesson to the world. The peace and harmony, it was a victory, practical victory. He embraced Buddhism and proved that Buddhism is the best way of life, not only for administration, but for the evolution of culture to serve the parents. So this struggle of peace, harmony, and the outlaw, crime, terrorism, that is prevalent even today. When we see the atrocities in Hathras, atrocities in Una, harassment in universities of the students like Rohit Vemula, or the communal rights, or the boundaries fight in India, China, or the wars in LOC, one element is there which fights peace from within, which is controlled by Buddhism through its preachings. If man is controlled, certainly you control your village, you control your colony. And if your colony is controlled, that is peaceful, that is harmonious, you control the entire district. Thereafter, you are able to control your state, your country, and up to the UNO, you will be able to control the world according to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the principles laid down by United Nations Organization. So many organizations and wings of UNO are there which are concerned with the problems which threaten peace and harmony. But the preachings of Lord Buddha are unavoidable. And all the decisions, they are common in UNO or in any peace treaty throughout the world. Because Lord Buddha told about Brahma Viharas, you have to develop in your personality equanimity, sympathetic joy, compassion. If you are compassionate, certainly you will have some wisdom. You must have equanimity regarding your decisions, regarding your life. You must have met loving kindness. And if you evolve these principles in your life, certainly you will feel proud of Dhamma Shasana. In the evolution of law, it is called constitutionalism. Throughout the world, it is respected, which is advocated by democracy. Lord Buddha inspired Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, and Dr. Ambedkar said during the making of the Constitution of India that without social and economic democracy, political democracy is of no vain. That is in vain. Really. He was right. We need constitutionalism. We need Dhamma Shasana. That is rule of law. Democracy may be maintained during monarchy also, in autocracy also, in empires and in other countries which are republic. And they are very strong enough also. They cannot be destroyed. When Ajatashatru sent his minister Vasakar to Lord Buddha to find the ways and means to win over the Vajis, Lord Buddha told so many things which are very important. He said, he exhorted that as long as the Vajis respect their elders, as long as they respect their women, as long as they respect the places of worship, not only within the territory, but without the territory. We may be inspired that throughout the world we have to practice secularism. Respect of elders, women, saints, worship places, and unity of action is there. Certainly the care of minorities is incorporated in his exhortation. We cannot avoid. You can say that democracy is the rule of majority, but any majority according to Buddha's exhortation, his preachings, cannot avoid minority anywhere. It cannot afford destroying secularism in any country, whether it is India, Pakistan or anywhere. They are weaker countries because they have to accept democracy. Otherwise, even the emperors and dictators like Napoleon, they respected public opinion. They respected secularism. Because on the basis of your army, you can win over the people. But if you want to maintain your rule, your empire peacefully, and you want to interact throughout the world peacefully, you will have to respect democracy. This was the message to Vasakar. But today this message must be heard by all the countries to maintain peace and harmony. If peace and harmony is maintained inside the countries, certainly those democracies respect international affairs. India, China, affairs are based on Panchsheel, appeasement policy, and mutual respect. They were good elements inspired by Lord Buddha's philosophy. But the people who are ruling or who are being ruled, they have to give up their ethnocentrism. Ethnocentrism is a term that is to some extent complicated. Ethnocentrism means that whenever some people begin to think that they are the best and the others are worse than theirs, and they begin to mock at them, laugh at them, they do not respect the culture and ways and means and customs of other cultures, other countries, it becomes a cause of conflict. It generates arrogance. So this kind of ethnocentrism must be given up by all humans, all countries. It generates inside a fearfulness. Fear has no place in Buddhism. Buddhism inspires us. We must be fearless. If our family members are afraid of us, if our subject is afraid of us, if our disciples in schools, they are afraid of us, they cannot be ruled, they cannot be taught, they cannot be convinced, because fear is destructive, not only to the persons, but to the rulers, to the religious people, to all people. Fear must not be there. Fear has no place in democracy, because it boycotts peace and harmony. It is against equality, liberty, fraternity, and justice. Fear keeps you away from fraternity. Even inside family, what happens? When a spouse is afraid of his or her spouse, gender gap index is there. We do not pay heed to the gender sensitization, and gender discrimination generates a lot of fight inside families. And if a ruler or an administrator is feeling some tension and he is given the decision of war and peace, his decision may be affected by his tensions, by his stress inside his own life, his family tensions affect his thinking. So we should be very much concerned about gender gap. It is against the peace of the world. Samuel P. Huntington is a political scientist, and he wrote an article of Clash of Civilizations. He told that the days when people fought on the basis of ideologies are gone. Now the civilizations may begin their fights. So this clash of civilizations may be stopped through Buddhist teachings and teachings. Where our indexes of happiness, freedom and democracy are going. Some fall is there in happiness index. Out of 149 countries, our place is 139 in freedom index. Freedom House report was noticed throughout the world, and we are declining. Downfall is there in democracy index also, in expression also. Because we feel that something are absent there, like judicial character, our decisions are affected by our foolishness, our immaturity, we do not apply wisdom. The Kalam Sut is the best way. That is a charter. What to accept and what not to accept. We have to fight for live and let live. And for that purpose, our Ashtang Marg is that is real solution. All kinds of nationalism or anti-internationalism, these are all principles against peace and harmony of the world. Buddhism is based upon caring and sharing, which means that you have to respect the representation, which we call abusively in some cases reservation. Caring and sharing. Sharing means safeguards, representation, reservation also. If we care and share for all citizens, all countries, entire humanity, certainly no threat for peace may arise there. We see terrorism throughout the world. We don't care for sustainable development. Dr. Ambedkar clarified that we must respect nature for all and all for nature. This is a solution, sustainable solution. It depends upon momentariness, impermanence. One of the main teachings of Lord Buddha. But the people who want to rule, who want to do their work on the basis of divide and rule, they do not understand the power of organize and serve, which is propounded by Buddhism. Even UNO and Universal Declaration of Human Rights Charter, they respect all the principles given in Buddhist teachings, but we are unable to avoid wars. The entire world has to decide whether it loves war or it loves Buddha or youth. If people are enlightened, they respect wisdom, certainly they will respect peace and harmony of the world. But so many people are against Buddhism. In some cases in India, you see that some images of Lord Buddha were disfigured and declared that they are the statues of Mahakali, they are Shiva's statue. This kind of conspiracy works against Buddhism. Excavation work is not done in proper way. False claims are there. The definition of history is being changed. The definition of democracy is being changed. So the entire Buddhism has to cope up with this challenge through the wisdom of Buddhism, to the research skill of Buddhist scholars. They must write, they must notice, they must research and give the people. If James Princip can give you Emperor Ashok's legacy, all the Buddhist monks, all the research scholars who belong to Buddhism, they can do something better, something more beautiful, something more peaceful, to evolve the peaceful culture throughout the world. Certainly I am very thankful to Dr. Praful. This Buddhism is a very large topic. So I want to conclude with this Gagar Mein Sagar, that Buddhism cannot be told in 1 or 2 hours. So certainly your gesture, your topic may be summarized that we need Buddha, not the Yuddha, throughout the world to maintain peace and harmony. Bhavat Sabba Mangalam. Thank you very much. Now Buddha Jai Hind.